Welcome back to the Sports Source, the segment of our program brought to you by Safety Systems. These folks aren't just the best at safety systems, at security systems, at home entertainment systems. They're also the best at customer service. I called VFL J.J. Surlis, another Johnny Majors recruit and player, by the way. Called him this week, and in less than 24 hours, my issue was taken care of. This is the group to call: safety systems, security systems, home entertainment systems. Call Safety Systems.
It's a battle of unbeaten grid titans as Georgia Tech and Tennessee clash in Atlanta with a bold bid hanging on the outcome. The Tech Yellow Jackets appear touchdown bound. They're 6-point favorites, and as often happens, favorites get beaten. 2 pass interceptions and a fumble here in the first half stopped Georgia Tech. And then in the third period, the Vols of Tennessee struck swiftly to score an upset and raise their national ranking. Johnny Majors hits Buddy Cruz with 2 key passes. That was the first, and Tennessee waltzed on to victory. Here comes the second. This one caught deftly by Cruz is the big one. The Vols' rangy end lugs leather to the Tech 1-yard line. Bronson carries it over, and Tennessee wins the game 6-0. A bold bid seems certain.
Buddy Cruz lugs the leather down to the 1-yard line. That's from 1956. That's Tennessee beating Georgia Tech 6-0. That old newsreel footage. A lot of people say at that time that was the greatest college football game played to that date, that victory down in Atlanta. I don't know how many people realize we don't see the single wing. The closest you could come was kind of the Tim Tebow years at Florida. But in the single wing, you had to be able to do everything. And Johnny Majors was literally a triple threat from Tennessee.
Well, he was. He was a great football player. He was a 2-time SEC Player of the Year. He's an All-American. He was a Heisman Trophy runner-up. He could throw the football. He could run the football. He could kick. He could also play in the secondary. He was such a good athlete. I think being that well-rounded also helped him as a football coach because he pretty much knew what you were supposed to do fundamentally at a lot of different positions. But he was a great football player at Tennessee, no question.
He was the son of a coach.
Shirley
took that very seriously, and I think that helped him as a single wing tailback. He had so many decisions to make, and I think that carried on into coach. He was a small guy,
145 pounds on campus.
You take the guys coming out in 1956, him and Paul Hornung. Well, Paul Hornung's going to have a lot better chance to have an NFL career than this little guy.
They lied to Neyland about his weight. They told him he weighed about 160. Neyland, he thought he was too small, so they lied to him about what he weighed. When he got on the scales after he'd signed, Neyland was like, "Wait a minute, pull the wool over my eyes."
And Neyland viewed him as one of the best to ever come through there. Yeah.
He thought he was the best halfback that he'd had in the single wing that he had seen at Tennessee. And Neyland had coached a Heisman Trophy runner-up 5 years before in Hank Larcella, who was also pretty darn good.
Well, let's talk about some statistics, just some accomplishments of Johnny Majors. Tennessee's only 2-time SEC MVP. Now, about 20 years ago, they started doing an offensive and defensive MVP, so you get twice as many chances. There's only one from Tennessee in 55 and 56 Majors. Consensus All-American, runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, as we mentioned, only man to lose to a guy off a losing record. Tennessee's Heisman runner-ups all have weird stories that go with them. And a member of the College Football Hall of Fame as a player. We'll talk about him and why he should get in as a coach, but won't in the next segment. But we got some video here, some photos of him as we discuss. One thing I think people need to know, if you were born after 1990, I don't think you realize that before Peyton Manning, Johnny Majors was the all-time greatest player at Tennessee. That was the guy. Now other people might have had a favorite here or there, but Majors was that guy. And for all those people who dream of Peyton Manning coaching Tennessee, he would have to go somewhere else, win a national championship, leave that school to come back to Tennessee to match what Majors did. That's how big his legend was there in the 70s and 80s and hopefully moving forward.
Well, and he had a great impact on a lot of people. There were, 33 of his former assistants that became head coaches, which is pretty remarkable in its own right. But a great player, great coach. He talked about him building 2 other programs before he got to Tennessee, and he rebuilt Tennessee as well. It was just, I just thought the impact he had, and I know other people have said this, but the Johnny Majors name to me and to others is synonymous with Tennessee football.
One thing you can notice looking at some of those clips, when I talked to him when he was coaching and he'd get real animated and start breaking down on, he had big hands. He wasn't a big guy, but I always said he's got big hands, and I think that would probably help you as a player.
Probably, especially when you're that small.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you mentioned earlier, could run, could pass, could kick, also defensive back. The kicking thing, you know, he used to quick kick back there, and occasionally he would do
loved
that
to
as a
quick
coach. And what people make fun of that, he did it 2 or 3 times here. It usually worked.
Yeah.
It was once in a Vanderbilt game, he completely flipped the field, wound up scoring off of it. So he wasn't afraid to pull back on to go back to his days as a player and use him as a coach. When we come back, we will talk about, and we'll spend a little bit more time talking about him as a coach, his assistants, what he accomplished, building 3 programs. That's next. But as we go to break, another game package of highlights. This from a newsreel that ran in 1956, later that year, about Tennessee's win over Kentucky. And you can really see how good Johnny Majors was in this clip. Come on back on the Sports Source.
At Knoxville, the unbeaten Volunteers of Tennessee, ranked 2nd nationally and already assured of a Sugar Bowl bid, get going against Kentucky. Johnny Majors picks up yardage, and then the Vols' brilliant tailback gets an assist in this scoring romp coming up. Gordy recovers Johnny's fumble and races across the payoff stripe. Should be clear sailing for the vaunted Vols, but Kentucky leads 7-6 in the 4th quarter, and the Vols have an uphill fight in their hands. They fight. Majors' pass is taken by Anderson, and a penalty against Kentucky puts the ball on the 3. From there, Majors hurdles into the end zone, somersaults his better, and Tennessee is back in the lead. And Tennessee fans breathe easier. They're breathing real easy when a Kentucky fumble is recovered by Tennessee in a 1-2-3 sweep. The stage is set for Mr. Majors, who is Johnny on the spot and all over the field. 2 long runs put the game on ice. 22 yards this time. Here's the second run. Majors hurdles his way into the clear, and with a burst of speed, hits pay dirt. Tennessee wins 20-7, still unbeaten.